Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that, well, at first glance, it might just look like a standard automotive update. But trust me, it is actually the spark of a massive global shift. We're talking about Tesla's decision to embed Starlink V5 connectivity directly into the Cybercab. This is absolutely not some minor hardware tweak. It's the beginning of a complete connectivity cascade that kind of changes everything. I want you to just sit with those words for a second. An organism. It breathes data. It feels the road. It constantly communicates with the hive, and it never, ever sleeps. That is exactly the moment the robotaxi stopped being just a clever little city car and evolved into a global, always-on organism. The sheer scale of this integration is honestly breathtaking when you start looking at it through that biological lens. So, part one, the always-on organism. Let's explore the very first ripple of this cascade. We're looking at a stark contrast between two completely different tech eras here. Think about the legacy model we all know, what you could call the geography of towers. It completely relies on cell towers, meaning it's strictly tethered to urban limits. And it's incredibly fragile, right? You drop a signal, you lose the car. But on the flip side, the Cybercab operates on the geography of demand. With a robust satellite link constantly overhead, it doesn't matter if you're navigating a remote mountain pass, some quiet coastal town, or a sweeping desert corridor. Those dreaded black spots? They literally just vanish. The operational map expands overnight purely because it's no longer tied to where telecom companies decided it was profitable to build a tower. And because that orbital connection is just so rock solid, the entire interior of the car transforms. The cabin essentially becomes a 4K streaming, zero buffering mobile office. Imagine taking a video call on a remote, empty highway, and the video stays perfectly crisp, no glitches. You could literally work a full shift, or just kick back and watch a movie in high definition, all while the vehicle is handling the driving. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Turning the ride from dead time into highly productive or even restorative time is a total game changer. This one shift in the passenger experience is going to accelerate adoption way faster than any vehicle price cut ever could. Moving on to part two, escaping the dead zones. But what actually happens when thousands of these always-on organisms start talking to each other? Well, let's look at how this biological fleet coordination works in practice. Instead of isolated vehicles driving around just hoping for a strong 5G signal to report back, thousands of cybercabs are constantly sharing real-time road conditions. They're relaying construction updates instantly. They distribute tricky edge case driving data through that shared satellite backbone without ever dropping the connection. The collective intelligence of the entire fleet improves organically and incredibly rapidly, precisely because it never has to wait for a cell signal to pass along what it just learned. And this brilliantly illustrates the real mechanical advantage of that biological coordination. Because these cars upload data continuously, the sheer volume of that data becomes an insurmountable competitive moat. AI training runs that used to take weeks, they compress down significantly. This rapid, continuous training loop allows Tesla to arrive at full self-driving iterations much, much faster. Every single kilometer driven in some remote area instantly feeds the neural nets, constantly widening the performance gap between this autonomy stack and literally everyone else's. Which brings us to section 3, rewriting the rulebook. Once these vehicles get this smart and this perfectly connected, adjacent legacy industries get completely rebuilt at lightning speed. Take traditional ride-hailing, for example. The legacy model relies on spotty cellular networks and expensive human drivers. The Cybercab model brings always-on autonomy that operates at a fraction of the cost with much higher uptime. Or think about urban planning. We're moving from cities just choking on asphalt parking lots to actually reclaiming that land for housing and mixed-use parks. Why? Because these vehicles don't need to park downtown. They just keep moving to the next fair. And insurance. We shift from offline, static risk profiles to real-time monitoring and remote assistance. This is going to drop premiums for fleet operators and make traditional personal auto insurance look like an absolute relic. Then there's the energy sector, which is about to feel a massive secondary wave. Let's look at vehicle-to-grid, or VTG. Basically, this is when vehicles act as intelligent mobile batteries that are coordinated centrally to balance the clean energy grid. Think of it like a giant, decentralized power bank. Because the entire robotaxi fleet is already centrally coordinated from orbit via Starlink, these VTG experiments can finally move out of tiny little pilot projects and into massive, scaled deployments. The fleet itself literally becomes a dispatched, intelligent power plant. All right, part 4, the global scale. Let's zoom out and look at this on an international level, because the macro ripple effects here are just huge. First off, regulators are going to start fast-tracking approvals, because the high reliability of those satellite links drastically eases their safety and latency concerns. Second, rural economies get an incredible affordable transport boost, reconnecting communities that might have lost their bus routes years ago. Third, consumer fleets, meaning everyday folks who own a Model Y or a Cybertruck, will eventually inherit this exact same connectivity. And fourth, global expansion entirely bypasses local telecom limits. Tesla's ability to deploy internationally is no longer held back by a country's patchy cellular infrastructure. If you have a clear sky, you've got a viable market. But actually pulling this off requires some incredibly specific hardware. We're talking about phased array terminals. These are specialized, low-profile antennas that enable those high-speed satellite links. Now, manufacturing these for millions of cars, that creates a massive supply chain boom for advanced manufacturing and RF transparent materials. On top of that, having a vehicle permanently reachable from orbit absolutely forces the entire auto industry to rapidly mature its encryption, authentication, and cybersecurity standards way beyond traditional cellular architectures. Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds. The ultimate flywheel. So let's look at the long-term compounding effects of everything we've just discussed. It creates a tightly wound feedback loop. Better connectivity produces better, faster data for autonomy. That better autonomy leads to wider, safer deployment of the vehicles. More deployment means more Starlink terminals out in the wild generating real-world revenue, which drives more capacity and next-generation hardware for Starlink itself. And then, boom, more Starlink capacity loops right back around to create even better connectivity. It is a perfect, unstoppable feedback loop where SpaceX and Tesla are continually reinforcing each other's progress. So, I want to wrap up today's explainer with a bit of a provocative question for you all. Will future generations view personal car ownership the exact same way we currently view owning a horse? I mean, when you can seamlessly summon a mobile office that streams 4K video from space and flawlessly navigates any remote road, a massive cultural shift happens. Mobility stops being about possession. It purely becomes a service, measured entirely in convenience and connectivity. Just think about that massive shift in human behavior as this always-on organism takes to the streets.